Back again with another review for the Sandman. We are up to episode 6 now. My name is Josh. Thanks for checking out the channel. And if you're new, basically I discovered Sandman as I was reacting to the trailer, and then I started watching it, and then I knew I had to review it. And I had to review each episode because there's so much stuff going on in each of these episodes. So what I'm going to do today is kind of like what I've been doing, and that's going to be try and do a pretty quick, brief synopsis, and then kind of just give general feelings and thoughts, and maybe try and project where the story may be going, even though that has clearly not worked well for me in the past, as this show continues to subvert expectations and go in different directions in the best possible way. So basically where this one picks up, so if you haven't seen it, you've been warned, and we're going to talk about it as if you have. So this one picks up right after Dream Morpheus has actually gotten his all of his tools back. Tools are most of his power, and he's actually now more powerful than he's been in a long time, he says, in a little bit of a not a monologue, he's dialoguing with somebody else that comes in. So basically it just picks back up right after everything that happened in the last episode, which was completely counter to this episode. This is why the show is really kind of crazy and good, is every episode is something different and is treated differently. The last one was very aggressive, very violent, and very, I don't want to say, just more like rumors and more like, people just talking about each other and treating each other badly. It's kind of like, I don't know, reality TV shows, but like a very amped up version. And this one was very different. It picked up right after that, and you're kind of wondering, okay, he's got all of his tools and his power back, so what's Dream going to do? Is he going to be, building his, his kingdom back and his realm, and then go from there and maybe try and, get everything right, all the wrongs? And you just pick up and he's just kind of hanging out in a park feeding some pigeons with some old French bread. And I mean, he seems a little out of place, as it is a very bright, sunny day. People are out there playing sports and walking their dogs and whatnot, and he's in his all normal black attire. Until a female walks up and sits with him and starts talking, and we discover that is his sister. And later on, through observing the job, we figure out which sister it is, and it's Death. Angel of Death, I believe, henceforth the sound of her wings, I believe. So they have a brief interaction where, again, you're not really sure who they are, but then you figure it out pretty quickly, and they're just talking. And basically what it sounds like is we've gotten to the point where Morpheus, he's kind of rudderless. He's definitely more meandering, and he's gotten to the point of where he's successfully gotten his quest or his journey at that point, and now he's lost for purpose, and he doesn't really know what to do and doesn't feel anything about it, is more or less what he's getting at. And then his sister quickly snaps out and says, well, I got stuff to do, so you can come with me if you want to, and he does. But the whole point of it is, my interpretation of it is, you start to go through and see that she's Death, and she's getting people and accepting, or getting them to realize what has happened, and then escorting them to where their journey begins, which was also cool. They talked about the journey to the land of no suns or something like that, which ultimately I'm kind of curious about, because I don't know if that is like their version of heaven, or is that just going into a long journey into a void? Do you just journey so long in the dark it becomes the void? I don't know. Hopefully we'll get a little bit more into that one, but she's talking to Dream about it, and doing her job, and he gets to watch her do her job, and he's asking, like, how does she do it? Because these people, and people aren't genuinely pretty happy to realize they're dead and that they're moving on from that for the most part. And she kind of laid some knowledge on him, which was really good. And again, I think this is kind of where you can tell that the source material for this is very well thought through, because a lot of the different themes that they spoke of are definitely things that have come up in a lot of different discussions and debates throughout time and history when you start talking about life after death. And the notion of being born into this world and being taken out of this world are very similar acts, but people interpret them much differently, when they should be some more welcoming to it. It's very interesting, but the perspective of her even admitting to Morpheus that, yeah, there was a point where she didn't want to do it anymore. She wanted to give up her purpose and her function and just go away, because people are always angry to see her not happy, and that's not great job satisfaction. But she got down to the point in where a light switched, and realizing that more or less, the point of what she was getting at is that her whole purpose, her whole function, their whole purpose is to serve life. She was there when the first person was born, or first entity was born, and she'll be there when the last one's born. That's her purpose, and that's what brings her joy, specifically when she realized that. And also that she's there, she's never alone, because she's always with people and escorting them to, you know, the next stage of their journey. It was very poignant. It was very concise. I liked it a lot. It was hard. I mean, there were a lot of scenes that were just kind of rough. The scenarios, they were all these things where they're literally trying to put you in the circumstances where it'd be the most harsh to be death. I mean, the first one where you kind of get exposed to it is where it's an elderly man. He's playing the violin, you know, and he definitely looks like he's been around for a good bit, maybe not in the best health. And that's when you realize who she is and what's happening. And that one's kind of a pleasant one. But, you know, some of the next ones are talking about, okay, well, here's an infant that's just laying down to get a nap while the mother goes to get something to wipe its face, and there comes death. All part of life and all part of the function and purpose of it, apparently. The one with the newlyweds that were there, and they were on their honeymoon, and he drowned and just came back out, and just, again, it was sweet and heartbreaking all at the same time, because you have someone that, like, he's literally just realized that he was dead, and he just wanted to make sure that his wife knew the password so she could get into the phone, so she could actually, you know, get access to the tickets and stuff like that. So people's mindsets, you know, they varied throughout their different experiences. I mean, same thing with the violinist. I mean, I believe he said a Hebrew prayer or something like that right before he was taken on to the next realm or the next journey. But it was very, very interesting just overall. Again, showed you a lot of hard things. I think the take-home message was, you know, we're going to a place we've already been, so it's not a bad thing. And that was definitely meant to be kind of one of the purposes with, I think, that part of it. But ultimately it was also to show that death had accepted and really thrived within finding purpose in the function of what they're doing, and what she's meant to do is just that. So she takes that very seriously and is working for humanity and for life to make it better in that manner, I guess. So I think it really spawned a little fire back in Morpheus about his purpose, and that was really neat, because then it kind of went to the next part. This episode was cool because it was split into almost two fairly different episodes. Again, you have the first whole part where it's talking about, you know, death and the purpose and function, and then you go right to Morpheus going to a meeting that he has, a standing meeting, which you don't know much about. He's like, it said every 100 years, but he missed one, clearly because he was in shackles. And it flashes back to this pub where Death and Morpheus are on, I think it's like 1300s, something like that. And they just happen to overhear somebody talking about, you know, they've seen Death, and just proclaim that, you know what, you all die because you just accept it. That's it. It's inevitable. I'm not gonna. And you just happen to have Death sitting right there, and they kind of, I think it's just more of a wager or just experiment, but also just out of curiosity's sake of, you know, you give that person immortality, and what would they do with it? Or, you know, how long would it be before they beg for death? I think was really kind of what Dream was getting after. He's definitely a little pessimistic in a lot of these earlier episodes, so I think he's definitely coming around a little bit more, and I think that was part of the episode 2 as the years went on. So she's able to grant him that, and then Dream goes over to tell him and says, I will meet you here in 100 years. And, you know, they all laugh it off, of course, until it's another 100 years, and there sits, his name was Robert Gadling, I believe, but they called him like Hob or Hud, something like that. He was great. Whoever the actor was, he's just great throughout the different scenes. So they kept jumping each 100 years at their meetings, and it was really cool because you start to see the limited interaction becomes a little bit more, but it's just a little bit each time. It's not like, it's been 100 years and we've known each other and talked. It's like, no, the last time I seen you was 100 years ago, but that was just when you told me to meet you here. So it just continues to grow, and they delve a little deeper into different things. There's a quick nod to William Shakespeare in one of them where I can't remember at which year that was. I probably should. 1400s, 1500s, something like that. And he he overhears him and he asks, is that a good playwright? He's like, not really. But I think Dream heard that he had the best intentions to have lasting effects on people's dreams. So that spawned something with him, and there was like a little side story where Dream did something with him, and obviously he became William Shakespeare. So the years passed, things like that. It started to... The best thing, though, was initially it was kind of just... I think Dream said he thought that this guy would be begging for death after 100 years, and the 100 years came, he was happy, shall we say, to say the least. Curious about what's going on, he always was. Then each 100 years, he's gotten progressively a little bit better off, more wealthy, especially like the second time he comes in there. He talks about the investments he made, or the different things he was doing. And he seems to be having a good time, which is definitely... I think at that time he maybe had some kids too for like the first time in a couple hundred years, and he talked about that. The third time came around and he was the exact opposite. He was in shambles, and this is where I definitely thought the show was going to be fairly stereotypical, and it was going to be like, okay, well, you have the rise and then you have the fall, and here's going to be where he begs for death and blah blah. And no, you got to that and you had a lot of those stereotypes and those different types of scenarios coming in, and then he's just like, I wouldn't dream of death. What are you talking about? I love every minute. This last 80 years have been miserable, but I wouldn't dream of anything else. It was just so interesting to see where it goes. Then there's just the super sad part when you start to realize that they had to miss one of their meetings because obviously Dream was in shackles, or contained, so to speak. And it just happened to be at a time where the previous 100 years is when they'd had a little bit of a tiff over what the actual purpose of their meetings were, and it was pretty good. Again, the guy ended up saying, Robert, I believe, just ended up saying that he thinks that this whole experiment is going on because Dream needs a friend or a companion or someone to at least converse with on a regular basis. 100 years, but I guess to the endless, that's pretty regular. But Dream didn't like that, and of course stormed out, and he kind of left the little bit of argument, well, if you come back in the next 100 years, then we are friends. And then of course that just happened to be when he's locked up. So I'm sure that put a pretty poor effect on old Robert. But then the next 100 years, when you come back to present day, it was very good to see. Something they've done really well with this is, again, I've said it from the beginning, like, it doesn't seem like Dream has much emotion, and I think that's purposeful. He's not really meant to have a lot of it. He needs to be pretty reserved. But you start to see things happen. Again, when he was talking with his sister, his relationship with that sister specifically is pretty solid, or they listen to each other fairly well, because she did actually make him kind of smirk at one point. And then when he actually does find Robert in the present day and goes to sit down with him, he smiles, like a genuine smile, and calls him friend. It's different, but it's really, really good. I will have to say, I think overall this was by far my favorite episode, which is hard to say because I've said that about every episode. But looking back at them, they're all such different and diverse episodes and about different topics. But this one is just something that really struck home with me. I mean, again, it could have been two separate episodes, but they were intertwined more about, I think, just much like the endless and like death and humans. It's just like, what's purpose? You need to have that purpose and find value in what you do. And that just kind of was the message, I think, that rang true through that one. But it was a cool episode. I'm interested to see. It ended with a little tease for, I believe, Desire or Despair. I think they are twins is kind of what they led on to this one. So we'll see where that one goes. But I'm going to probably just kind of stop guessing what happens next because I don't have any idea. I haven't seen Boyd Holbrook in a while, so hoping he'll be back pretty quick. I don't know, what did you guys think? Did you like this one? What did it hit with you? Was it a little off pace than the other ones that you maybe didn't like? I personally really enjoyed it, but let me know what you think. I'm gonna have to watch it again, and I don't know if I want to watch all of it again because some of it's kind of a little messed up, but very impactful, very good. All right, peace out.